Okay. So I have the document up, so do you want me to fill it out? I can like scribe or whatever.
Yeah, and we'll just all talk about it.
Yeah. Okay, let me share my screen so you guys can see what I'm writing. Hold on. Does that work? Okay. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Okay, so we probably don't need to, well, unless, I mean, do you want to briefly go over the main points of the case? I wrote up a summary of it that I can just sort of copy and paste, but do we want to just go over it real quick so that we all remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So Peter and Jeanette are married. They lost their first child together. When they were newly married, Peter didn't know that he had died. He came back to the hospital thinking he was still alive. I mean, I guess we can just read it. I don't know. Sorry, guys. What do you guys want to do?
No, you're good. You're good. This is like a really intense story. Like,
It is. It really
Yeah.
is.
but yeah, so basically after the hospital situation, they still kind of had their struggles as a family. They ended up having like three more kids. And then Janet got pregnant with twins.
Mhm.
She like knew that she had like was having twins, but the doctor said that she wasn't, which was so bizarre.
Yeah.
And then ended up having twins, and the one boy, I think was it Jerry or Jeff? I can't remember which one.
So
Jerry?
Jerry was the one who was sick.
Okay, Jerry was got really sick.
Mm-hmm.
But then kind of got better, and I think it was 6 years later until he got really sick again, and then ended up passing away, and his organs being like, well, the family having to make this big huge decision on if they were going to keep him on life support, but then they decided that they were going to take him off, and his organs were transferred to this old lady who happened to be Peter's grandmother, which is also crazy.
Yeah.
um
I don't think it was his organs, though. I think it was just the life support machines.
oh, it was.
Yeah.
Okay, I must have read that wrong. um but then she ended up also passing like
Yeah.
a month later or so.
Yeah. So they lost both their son and Peter's grandmother in this one like fell swoop.
Yeah.
And then after the deaths, the relationships in the family began to improve. Peter and Jeanette were more loving and evolved with each other. The children stopped fighting, and they were able to move forward together with a healthier family system.
Mm-hmm. And those dreams were crazy too.
Yes, they
The
were.
son, the oldest son, had a dream of his brother and how he had said, well, I came down here for this purpose of like helping the family. And then when the oldest brother went to go tell his sister, she had also had the same dream.
Yeah. Yeah, that was crazy. Um okay, so let's just go on to the principles and concepts. Which principles and concepts from the course do you think can be applied in offering help and direction for the family?
I think that going back in the course a little bit, the ABCX model could help them kind of see everything that happened and have a few resources to help them cope with that.
Yeah. Oh no, go ahead. I identified that that model as well. I said that the cognitions and the other reactions to tragedies are very important in situations like this one. If the family dwells on their loss, refusing to move forward, then they will likely end up in crisis. On the other hand, if they see their loss as an opportunity to cherish each other and do other things to improve their family relationships, then they will have a better chance of working through the tragedy in a healthy manner. Just kind of focusing on that C, the cognitions part.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too how they responded to the death of their first baby together and the death of their son a few years later. Totally different.
Yeah. I wonder what do you think contributed to those differences? Because like they didn't even talk at all about. They said they didn't talk about their the loss of their first son at all. They did not until they were interviewed for this case study.
I almost feel like that was kind of how they were coping. They were just trying to like forget all about it so that because it was too hard for them to, I don't know, like remember him. And so I just feel like that was probably one of their coping mechanism was to let's just not talk about it.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I think also, from what I remember in the case study, when the first death had happened, the first time, the husband was at home and the wife was there, so she turned to the mother, and they didn't communicate with themselves or turn to themselves as a unit to try to work through it. They both had their different outlet. Well, I think turning to her family, he was then figuring out how to do it on his own. Yeah, that they were never able to bridge. Whereas the second time around, they pulled the family together, they did the family council, and were able to kind of build that communication and that relationship with each other of being supportive and there for each other.
Yeah.
I think the family dynamic changed as well because at the beginning it was just, well, it was the two of them with their daughter, but then when they lost the little boy, they actually had like a bigger family, like other children to rely on too.
Yeah.
It wasn't just that they were by themselves going through it, pretty much.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point. Where does that fit?
Let me see what did you write on, what is it, the recommendation? Okay.
Right here with the, sorry, I pointed at my screen. You guys can't see that. So here under coping strategies, like they're relying on each other and their family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would put it there. Yeah. Well, Do you think it connects to that first point about talking about the loss? Or is it a separate point?
That's a good point. Maybe, yeah, let's.
Well, and it's also part of the counseling with the council, which we learned about, I think, I don't know, maybe last week or the week before, learning about how the 12 apostles resolve discussions within themselves. One of their points was they communicate with each other. They make an effort to make sure everybody has been heard. So it might be part of that.
So that could be another coping strategy. The family can have regular family councils in order to facilitate communication about the loss and the grief they are feeling. That work?
Sounds pretty good to me.
Marvelyn, did this right here communicate the idea that you were trying to share about relying on each other and the changing family dynamic?
Yeah, I think it ties into that pretty well.
Okay. I'm gonna put here what I said about cognitions earlier, just to sort of finish up that point. Does that look good to you guys?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I also thought about too, like with additional resources or any other resources, like reaching out to the church and seeing like what they had, available to them during that time too, like the Relief Society or whatever, because that is a really hard thing to go through.
I know that there's also, can't think of what it's called. There's a group that you can join. So just over 2 years ago, my little brother passed away. So my mom has been dealing with the loss of a child, and she's joined some of these groups that are parents of other kids, kind of like an emotional support group. And they go on, some of them go on to and share their stories weekly. And there's kind of one person that leads it. And I don't know tons about it. I'm assuming it's kind of like a counselor that leads it in a group discussion, and they're able to talk about points or express. Sometimes you just need someone to tell you you're feeling like you're crazy, but it's part of the process. So even knowing that that's an option, I don't think if you've been through it and you found somebody that has has the resources, you don't even know what's available.
Is that like an online group or is it in person?
No, it's an online. So there's people from all over the United States. And then the neat thing is, like, say she can't make one of the sessions, it's kind of like this, a recorded video that they send out so that throughout the week, if she finds like an hour later on, she can go on and listen to it, kind of thing.
That's really cool. So sorry about your brother.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry about that.
It was an experience.
Yeah, I bet. How old was he?
18.
18. Did he get sick?
He had a football coach that took hazing a little too far and ended up, he turned to alcohol and drugs to kind of cope with it. And he was looking for, like, he was taking antidepressants and anti-anxiety, I think it was, medication, but through a dealer, not a doctor, because we didn't realize that's what he needed, and I don't think he realized that's what he needed. It just wasn't, we weren't aware of how important mental health is and how there's that stigma of like, oh, you take Medicaid, that kind of thing is out there, and we just weren't aware that, okay, you need help, let's figure out how to get you it and what it is. And so, my mom was trying to do that, oh, come home, we need to pray, we need to read, and add the gospel into it, which is great. But there was that whole side of mental health that our eyes weren't open to. We had no idea. And so he accidentally overdosed one night, and he threw up and suffocated and ultimately passed away from suffocation.
That's horrible. I'm so sorry about that.
It was a really horrible experience, but it taught, it's very eye-opening. And a lot of people that are in my parents' ward, one of the kids, he was 15 and his mom passed away very suddenly and out of the blue. And so he turned to marijuana to cope with things. And a lot of people, you can either empathize because you've been in that situation, you understand it, or you judge because you can't understand it, you haven't been there. And that's kind of the two ways that the human mind can rationalize things. And so a lot of times most members of the church are very good-hearted, but they stay very far away from drinking and from drugs and all of that. And so it's very hard to understand, well, why would you turn to that? Why would you do that? And it was a very big eye-opening thing for my family. And so as that was happening, that dad was able to reach out to my mom and, I don't know what's going on, I don't know why this is happening, and get a whole different side. And that ward is doing a lot more mental health awareness. And, if you need help, go talk to a counselor, go get some medication, obviously try to do what you can without medication, because we don't want to medicate everybody, but it's okay. It's there to help you, and just work through what you need to work through. There's no judgment kind of thing. So it's been a blessing in the long run.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I think that actually speaks a lot to kind of one of the opportunities that families go through. Obviously, losses are devastating, but a lot of times you come out of it, well, don't want to say a lot of times, but you can come out of it, like you said, with a better awareness, better understanding of things like this. So in your case, you learned a lot about the importance of mental health and taking care of your mental health in healthy ways. And I feel like this family in the story learned a lot about cherishing each other and becoming closer as a family unit. I think it's said in the story that Peter said to Jeanette that he's like, we don't know how much time we have with our children. And so they learned how important it was to be together and cherish each other and have loving, healthy relationships.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to write that. Whoa, why does it keep doing that? Down. Actually, I wrote that in the, I didn't actually. Okay, so sorry, not quite sure how to word this. Any ideas?
I think recognizing the value that each family member brings, and the blessing, or the having gratitude even when things aren't easy, because they went through that hard time between the first child passing and the second child passing, where it was clear they obviously weren't that tight of a husband, husband and wife. She was kind of doing her thing, he was doing his. And I think after the second child passing, he recognized the gratitude of even just having her during that time, whether it was good or bad.
I meant Peter.
Sometimes I can talk a lot, so if I start talking too much, someone just like give the cutoff signal, by the way.
No worries.
I feel like it's kind of like tedious to be having a Zoom and also like doing a worksheet. I'm like,
yeah. But I feel like it's the easiest way to do it.
I think another one of the opportunities that the family now has is they have an awareness, so they have an opportunity to be a mouthpiece or to lend a helping hand when it happens to somebody else. And they've had to find the resources, and so now they're able to share those resources.
Does that say what you were going for?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Any other principles or concepts? One thing that I was thinking of was family roles. So I'll just how Peter and Jeanette had very strict roles in their family, and Peter was the provider and Jeanette was the like household manager / children carer. And that led to strain within the relationship since Jeanette felt unsupported at home and Peter felt like he wasn't doing enough to provide, so he felt like he needed to provide more, which made Jeanette feel less supported. And so in order to like foster a healthier relationship, they need to reevaluate their roles and find a more egalitarian way of managing the needs of the family. So that was one that I noted. What do you guys think of that?
Well, one thing I was thinking while you were saying that, I don't remember exactly which section I read it in, but it said that adaptability is key to successfully navigating like a crisis. And I feel like the first time, they didn't really adapt, and you could kind of see the negative impact. She kept her role, he kept his, he turned deeper into work, she turned deeper into taking care of the home, and kind of they ended up turning away from each other. But the second round, they adapted to, kind of taking over each other's roles and kind of redefining whose roles were what and which expectations the roles were now going to have.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's great. So after the loss of their first son, I wish we knew their last name, or like a fake last name so that I could say like the Johnsons or whatever. Anyway, that's not the point. Peter and Jeanette treated into their roles and did not adapt make an effort to adapt or adjust in response to the loss after losing Jerry. They need to adapt and reevaluate their family roles in order to healthily respond to the tragedy. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Here.
I actually thought about how positive feedback loops guided their behavior. So let me see what I wrote. When family lost Jeremy, they found positive feedback as the family rewarded deviation from their previous patterns. These patterns positively changed the family dynamic by reducing the overall contention in their household. So because of their death, they were able to change the previous patterns that they had, and created new patterns in their family that were actually beneficial and uniting.
Yeah. I love that. Can you read that again? I'll just type in what you said.
It says the basic assumption of feedback loops guide behavior applies to this family. Once the family lost Jeremy, they found positive feedback as the family rewarded deviation from their previous patterns. These patterns positively changed the family dynamic by reducing the overall contention in their household. Feedback
As they rewarded
deviation from previous patterns. These patterns positively change the family dynamic by reducing the overall contention in their household.
These new patterns. Sorry, what was that last part again?
Positively change the family dynamic.
Family dynamic as it reduced contention in the home. They reduced in the home. Okay. Love that. Any other principles? Let's see how many we've got. We're actually at 2. So it's set up here that each bullet point should be between 100 and 200 words. And we've got about 200 there. So I think we're good. Unless anyone has anything else they want to add in this section.
I have one that could go in that section or could go on the relevant risks and dangers. So
Okay.
we can put it there if you want instead.
Okay.
But I was thinking about CBT and how Jeanette might be blaming herself for the death of either or both of the children, because it was her who fell down the steps, which induced that early labor, which made their son, he was born before he was developed enough to survive. So she could be thinking, if only I had held onto the railing, or if only I hadn't decided to go outside at that time, or all of those should have statements. And even without her really realizing it, she could be beating herself up for that.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, I don't love that. I don't love that you would be doing that, but I love what you're saying. So Jeanette may feel like she is to blame for the deaths of both of her sons.
Mm-hmm.
The principles of cognitive behavioral therapy may be able to help her challenge these thoughts of self-blame and recognize that we're outside of her control. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Another risk that I was thinking of when I was reading through this was that there's a significant risk to the marital relationship. I don't know the exact statistic, but research has shown that many couples who lose a child end up splitting up. And so I feel like they need to take steps to protect their relationship. Does that sound good?
I think it's very accurate.
Okay.
Be very good.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I already typed this up, so we're gonna.
I feel like there could be some like overgeneralization as well. Because that's basically you view a single negative event as a never-ending pattern of like defeat. Already like they've lost 2 kids now, and then with what's his name, Peter's statement at the end was kind of like, we don't know how long we're gonna have any of these kids, and it's just kind of like I could see them getting caught up in like seeing this as a pattern, like, and feeling very defeated, which is so sad.
And I think another part of, I agree with the overgeneralization, where you kind of get stuck on one thing and it's just all seems negative.
Right.
I think something that, like, I don't have any kids, so I had no idea that this was a thought that was through a parent's mind. But once I was told it, I was like, oh, I can actually see that. My mom has struggled for over 2 years now. Personally, she feels like she failed as a parent. That's what, that's how she it is, like, I failed. I can't believe I failed. And so then it changes the way that, she feels like people perceive her, even though people, you have a zit on your face and you think everybody sees it, but it's just you. It's that same concept of, you feel like everybody thinks that you're the worst parent ever. And, you just get stuck on that one little thing. And I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's true. Will get stuck in this distortion by believing that I don't know how to say this. I don't know how to condense everything that you guys just said.
That by believing one of their kids passed away, they aren't qualified as parents.
Because they have lost 2 children. Oops. They are not qualified as parents. CP can also help to challenge these thoughts.
And then just one other thing I was thinking, for the, what is it called? The should statement. So something that I thought was really interesting. So between my husband having gone to Afghanistan and then my mom having the loss of my brother, I realized that people that go through trauma and losing somebody often do the should. I should have done this. I should have done that. And I've had my mom say in many moments, I should have moved when he was 5. I should have done this. Maybe he would still be alive. And so I think, like, I didn't even know that was a thing. But I think that's something that happens very often of, how could I have changed this? I should have done this, which would have made a different outcome.
Yeah. Okay, how does that sound? Right here. I just condensed the should statements in with the self-blame that we talked about earlier because I feel like they're related.
And not that this needs to be written down anywhere. I just think it was so awesome when we did the mood logs, how it helps recognize and point out all these things. And then I don't remember who, somebody mentioned the CBT, how important it is to, like, how your thought process, if it's positive or negative, can change your whole perception. It just is interesting going through, especially because I'm, like, from the outside of the situation looking at it. I'm like, oh my gosh, these mood logs are the best thing in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the mood logs because it's so interesting to see your thoughts and then realize that all of them are practically lies that we tell ourselves, and then we're like replacing them with truth helps us to like see things more clearly.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah, I definitely think that mood logs could go under the list of resources that they
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Mm,
Just while we're sitting here, and since we're talking about mood logs, I have in one of my other classes, the teacher was talking about how she was writing some kind of a paper or doing a thesis, and she was doing it about divorced members of the church starting to date again, and she had been divorced, and so she was trying to write it without her own bias being part of it. So she had written down all of the, like she said, I was very blunt with myself and wrote down all of her true feelings about divorce within the church. And then as she was doing her paper, she could reflect on, since she had written it out, oh, this is my feeling versus part of the study. And so I think it was really important with the mood log. Sometimes I don't even think we realize we're thinking something or we have a thought in a certain direction. And so then with it, it's like, oh, oops, I didn't know I was treating myself like that.
Real quick, my daughter is waking up from her nap, so I might have to run out and give her to my granny real quick. So just if I disappear for a second, I'll be right back.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so this section is good. We've got 165 words here. Are there any other opportunities we want to talk about?
opportunity. I was thinking that the death of the boy helped everybody in the family realize what their roles were in the family.
Yes. Could you say that one more time? The dad helped the other members of the family understand their roles?
Yeah, like the death helped them understand where they lie, like where their responsibilities lie, and the brother's purpose of, like, because after he had the dream,
Okay.
after the brother and the sister had the dream. Do you need to go?
Yes. Sorry.
Okay.
You're all good. Does this thing have it has a chat on it, so
Does it have?
if you want to keep talking and we can submit the chat so she can copy and paste it in, or we can wait. Either way, I'm totally good.
I think if we just write out this statement, that way, because we've talked about it a little bit now, that way when she gets back, we can just summarize it instead of having her write it out again.
Okay.
I'm gonna put what I wrote in the chat.
Okay.
All right.
And we're under the relevant opportunities still, right?
What is that? Yeah, I think that was an opportunity.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like it correlated with, so let's make sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're good. So we wrote it in the chat so that you can copy and paste it in.
Oh, perfect. Okay, perfect. So that section is done. Relationship considerations. I was thinking about Jeff, Jerry's twin. And I can just copy, paste this so you guys can read it. We don't have to use it, but just so that you can read it. Jeff's grief at the loss of his brother is going to be different and likely deeper than his siblings' grief because they're twins. And Peter and Jeanette need to make sure that they are paying attention to Jeff's emotional needs and that he does not feel neglected as they work to move past the tragedy. Also, since Jeff and Jerry were so alike, it is possible that being around Jeff will remind Peter and Jeanette of their grief, so they need to make sure that they remember that Jeff is his own person and that he is young and needs his parents. So that's one that I was thinking of. What other relationship considerations should we think about?
I think it changes the relationship the parent has with the child. So I was out of the house. I had already moved out and off to college by the time my brother had passed away. But my sister was 3 years younger than him, so she was still living in the home. And she's 17 right now. She'll be 18 this year. And so my relationship, or the relationship between her and my mom, I don't think they even recognize it. I never said anything to them, but I noticed that when my sister does move out, I think it will be 10 million times harder on my mom than it was when I moved out, or than it would be, if my brother had moved out and then her. It kind of puts a different form of attachment or need to make sure that the child is secure and safe into the relationship.
Yeah. How do you want to word that here?
Maybe presents the between parent and child presents the fear that remaining children need to be kept safe and held close. If any of y'all think is another way to phrase it, feel free to say it too.
How about the loss of a child can create fear that remaining children need to be kept safe and held close. This can result in unhealthily, what's the word I'm looking for? Closed boundaries between parents and children, Peter and Jeanette, which can lead to tension and other struggles.
I think we should add where it says the closed boundaries.
Uh-huh.
And I liked what she said of the attachment style, that it may create like unhealthy attachment issues between the parent and the child.
I've noticed my sister's 17, about to be 18, and that's about the stage that most kids go off to college and move out of the house. So she's getting in that mindset of like, I want to leave, I want to go. And there's still some things that like she needs to be at home for a little bit longer, but I've noticed the idea of her leaving versus the idea of when I was leaving off to college, like my mom's like completely freaked out for her to leave and go off. And I don't know, like I get both sides of it, but it's just interesting that there wasn't that emotional reaction when it was me that was going off. So
yeah. Does this sound right?
yeah.
Okay, cool. So that section's good. This section's good. Recommendations to supporting and involved parties. What do you guys think?
One thing I would say is I think a lot of times when you're going through something, you feel like you're the only one feeling that feeling or going through it. For my mom, she felt like she was completely going crazy, that she was playing the what if game with my brother, with what she could have done different for my brother. And until her and my husband kind of had a heart to heart, and we said, no, I do the same things with the guys I couldn't bring back from Afghanistan. All night long in my brain, it plays, what if I had done this? What if I had done that? It normalized some of the coping, I guess it would be, that she is going through to deal with the situation. So I think, finding a support group or somebody to talk to is really important to recognize the normality of your coping.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's right. That's very good. So you would suggest that people like supporting and involved parties should like talk openly about their own experiences with loss?
Yeah.
Like not alone.
Yeah, so that they can have that empathy, that can, that normalization that you were talking about.
Yeah. So like for me, I've been previously married before, and my ex-husband had abuse issues. And so at the base that we're stationed at right now, there was a girl that everybody kind of thought was stuck up and kind of witchy. And because of what I've been through, I had to do a lot of counseling, and I still have things that trigger me. But I recognize, no, she's not in a safe relationship. She's not talking to anybody because, like I could recognize her symptoms and signs. So then I was able, because I'm comfortable at the stage that I'm at, I started opening up about, oh yeah, I've been previously married and this and that, and started talking about the things I've been through, which then I think normalized what she's going through and made her realize, oh my gosh, like, first off, that wasn't okay for you to go through it. And, here's the things that happened, and kind of puts all the pieces together. And so just having one person that's willing to open up allows people to start. Sometimes you just have to talk through what you're thinking to figure out how you're putting it together in your brain. So I think it just takes, one person. That support group can be as big or small.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. And I was going to add on, you don't have to type this in there, but I was just going to add on. I think it's really important to do that because, like, for me, when I was in my previous bad marriage, I didn't know how to navigate it. And I had somebody that had been in an abusive relationship recognize the signs of what I was going through and kind of laid the stones in place for me to navigate. And so, I didn't realize that I had PTSD from my ex-husband until my now husband, who had gone through PTSD, was like, oh, here's the words you need to know, and here's how to navigate and how to recognize. And so it helps teach you, because they've already been there, it helps teach you how to get to the other side of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really important. I think that that's really important.
That's so true, because we get so caught up in those feelings and thinking and believing that we are alone and we're the only ones, and then almost just accepting that as like how it is and how it has to be, when really there's so many options and there's so many resources out there and so many other people who have gone through similar things we have that really can help us.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really important and true. But something else that I think that I was thinking about, I mean, I 100% agree that we need to be open about our experiences with loss. But I think also we need to remember not to be overbearing with our own experiences, and to recognize that every family experiences loss differently. So something that I said was that family members and supporting parties, they need to allow space for the family to grieve on their own terms, and they can be there and they can support, but they also need to not be overbearing and be like, well, this is how I grieved, so this is how you're probably grieving, you know, because it's different for everybody. So there needs to be that balance between the two, between being open and sharing your own experiences and allowing families to experience it in their own way. So that was something that I thought of. Does that sound good? Am I totally off base here?
No, I actually really thought about that too. Like also allowing space and finding alternatives to like serve that family. You don't have to be overbearing, but you can, there's so many other things you can do. Like even if you're, I remember there was this family in our ward and they lost two of their daughters. And one of them was my teacher and the other one, my primary teacher, and then the other one was in primary. And I remember they just wanted time to grieve, and they spent a lot of time in the temple, and that's kind of what they did. And all our ward wanted to do was be there for them and help them and do whatever we could. And I just remember like us like going over and just cleaning their home or their yard and doing like other things that wasn't, you know, overbearing or overwhelming to them, but when they weren't even around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that too. I think that sometimes like we want to be checking up on them all the time and saying, "Are you okay? Do you want to talk about it?" But sometimes people don't really want to talk about it, and they just need that space, and they need everyone else around them to still treat them like a normal person instead of being so careful that anything they say could like trigger them to remember their loss or make them sad or something like that.
Yeah. And
I think sometimes too, I mean, initially, I think you need to give the space for the family to process what's happening and just figure out how to put things in line to even start moving forward. But there comes a point where I think it's important to ask, like, what do you need? Ask the family, like, what do you need me to do? There was somebody that I know who their little girl had passed away, and I don't know if it was the ward or family or who, but they said, you know, what do you need from us? What can we do? What do you want us to do or not do? And the parents had said, you know, speak her name, talk about her. Like everybody, you know, sometimes I think Sarah, you had said, you know, people get worried. I don't want to say something to bring up bad memories or say something wrong. So, and it's different for each family because some families might not want things brought up, but being aware, you know, to ask what their needs are.
yeah. For sure. As well.
I agree, you know, giving the space for them to figure out what their needs are first, because
Yeah. No, but it's all about balance. Does this convey what you were trying to say there?
yeah.
Okay. So we've talked about reaching out to the church and support groups as far as additional resources. I also wanted to make a little plug for therapy. That like, I feel like a lot of people are like, oh no, I don't need therapy. You know, I can handle this. We can handle this as a family. We can handle this on our own. But I feel like after every major transition, and this is a major transition for this family, they should go to therapy. They should seek out professional help, and not think that they can just like handle it on their own. Because sometimes you need like little, you know, they might know all of the things that they need to do, but then you can't think of it when you're grieving, so you need someone to sit you down and remind you of things like that.
And I also think you can include in that point that the therapist, like, they will teach them coping strategies for them to be able to deal with, like, to grieve effectively and not just brush it under the rug and,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, going along with that in therapy and like some of the tools that therapy can teach you. I know we talked about mood logs a little bit. I think that's definitely a good resource that they could have, and especially through therapy. And then also meditation is something that could help them.
Yeah, definitely.
I just have to say, learning about in this last chapter or couple, whatever that we read, my mind was blown. With
Yeah.
the meditation and it was like chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4 or something. Yeah.
Be mindful.
Oh my gosh, the whole time I was like, Mom, I gotta tell you this. Like, call my husband, John, I gotta tell you that. Like, it just blew my mind.
I love meditation.
I was telling my family, I was like, okay, we sat for dinner, we're like, okay, no distractions, we're gonna mindfully eat. And they're like, wow, this food actually tastes better. And I'm like, yeah, it actually does. I am learning something that works.
Okay. Does that look good? Yeah?
Yep, looks good.
Yep.
All right, well, that's the end of the worksheet. So good job, friends. I will add here at the bottom a link to the recording of this, and then I'll submit it on Canvas. Is there anything else you think we should add anywhere? Any other thoughts that you've had as we were talking?
Can we look over the rubric to make sure that we...
Yes, that's a great idea. Let me start this. Find the rubric.
Thank you all for letting me talk so much. I told you I talk a lot.
No, you're good. Okay. Let's try. Okay. So here's the rubric. So we briefly summarized the key points of the case, described at least 3 key principles. Let's see. ABCX model, adaptability, and feedback loops. So, yep. Listed at least 3 relevant risks and dangers for the family. Self-blame, risk to the marital relationship, and overgeneralization. So we did that. 3 relevant opportunities. Cherishing each other, empathizing with others, and understanding the family's dynamic and purpose. Noted, so we did that. And we noted several important relationship considerations, including which relationships might be particularly at risk and which need to be protected in order for the family to flourish. We didn't talk about Peter and Jeanette's marriage. Do we want to add something about that?
I have a thing typed up about their marriage.
Okay. Their marriage may be at risk due to facing the death of another child. This event may cause suppressed feelings to arise, causing resentment towards each other. However, their marriage can be protected by turning towards each other for support, comfort, and reassurance during difficult times. Essentially, by protecting their marriage, they are protecting their family. This experience is teaching the family to turn towards one another during a time of need instead of against each other. This will exemplify to children how the children must find support in each other as they face the difficult time of losing a loved one. I love that. Do we just want to add that in?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. I will just copy that, add it in. Oops. Okay. Thanks. Thank you for that. That's good. I think that it is really important to remember that that remembering that their marriages could be at risk. The next item is coping suggestions, offering at least 2 concrete suggestions regarding how the family could cope. We did that. And then we also did 2 concrete suggestions regarding how extended family could support the family. So I think we've done everything there. So I think we're good. So let me stop the recording.